they grind from the way it's perceived by Hollywood? Is Hollywood accurate, or are they just off the mark on a movie-by-movie basis?
Well, the Hollywood movies are very exciting, and some of that does occur. But we collect huge amounts of intelligence through what we call euphemistically national technical means, meaning electronic and other forms of surveillance. Frankly, we need a lot more human intelligence collection than we have, and we need a greater clandestine operations capability than we have. I think Puritans in the foreign policy establishment have looked down on clandestine operations for a long time. We're in a very dangerous world. We could use a lot more. But it's something I think Americans, if they really knew what our intelligence collection capabilities were, would be very proud of what we're able to do.
John Bolton, I want to move to the bipartisan thrust of Washington against China. Should we be cautious because there's such a fixed bipartisan nature to our anger over China? Do we overreact?
Well, I don't think we've overreacted yet. And I agree with you that there's certainly an unusual character to the bipartisan nature of the concern about China. But I do think the underlying concern is warranted. I think China is essentially an existential threat to us and the West as a whole in this century. And their challenge is really across the board. It's not just political and military, although very much in those sectors. It's economic as well. Decades of stealing our intellectual property, discriminating against foreign investors and traders, manipulating the international financial system to its advantage. There's a lot that's going on for a long time. We're just really beginning to appreciate and catch up to. So I think the bipartisan concern here is warranted.
Among others, is Dr. James Stavridis, of course, a former admiral, about a Pacific Rim buildup. We know the United States has a new dialogue with the Philippines, among others. Does Bolton suggest that we need to rebuild out our military in the Pacific Rim, not just for Taiwan, but also for the South China Sea?
I think we need to rebuild it across the board. I think the next American president needs defense budget increases in the range of what Ronald Reagan did during his presidency, maybe even more. I think that implies even greater cuts to domestic spending to get our deficit down. But let's be clear, we've been asleep at the switch for a long time here. Going back to the end of the Cold War, people said it was the end of history. We had a peace dividend. We've got to put all that behind us. We face a very wide range of threats. Let's just take the Pacific. Get a map out that has the Pacific Ocean in the middle of it. It's a long way away. We need probably 50 more naval war vessels in our fleet just to deal with the Pacific, let alone increases for the rest of the world.
And John Bolton, what's so important here is those of us of a certain vintage remember our intelligence misestimates of the Soviet Union. Do you have a confidence in our intelligence of China, or do we make the same misguiding that we did with the Soviet Union? Do we know what we're talking about with Beijing?
Well, I think we've got pretty good estimates on key areas. Some of it's visible to us already. Their capabilities for offensive cyber operations, for example, the military buildup that they've undertaken in anti-access area denial weapons to push us back from the western shores of the Pacific. Their anti-satellite weapons capabilities to blind our eyes in the sky in times of crisis or conflict. That evidence is out there, as is the evidence of things like weaponizing what otherwise look like commercial companies. Huawei, ZTE, they're not telecommunications firms. They're arms of the Chinese state trying to take control of fifth-generation telecommunications.
John Bolton, thank you for joining Bloomberg Surveillance this morning. Former Ambassador Bolton, of course, has worked with the National Security Council as well, always controversial. This has been a superb first day for us in Washington. Lisa Bramlett joining us tomorrow. As John mentioned earlier, we're so thrilled to bring you as a kickoff to these spring meetings. Something Lisa's really going to be working on, which is a Bloomberg Surveillance newsletter. We're just thrilled about this project. But I'm going to be honest, it's a working project. Lisa's making it up as she goes with our editorial team. So look for the surveillance of the newsletter. John and I are working on a name. We've really went in with surveillance. Toxic brew. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not. We continue forward, and coming up here in the coming days, we'll speak, of course, much more of these spring meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Front and center for us is a shocking call of economic slowdown for the IMF over 5 years. But we'll wrap it in everything forward of the market data, and that begins strong tomorrow at 8:30 with the inflation report. We'll look at that front and center tomorrow. 10:30 this morning, Bloomberg Markets, the chief economist for the International Monetary Fund, Pierre Olivier. We're going to show for that coming up here from Washington. All this week, this is Bloomberg Surveillance.
動物は自然とうまくやっている。人間はどうだろう。一番長く使う住宅こそ一番地球に優しいものにしたい。環境先進マンションプランツ東急不動産。
Banking crisis have been contained, even though there's good access to liquidity in the strongest banks.
Unfortunately, there's more downside in the equity markets, and there is upside.
We need people to stop spending. We need credit to contract, and that's what slows the economy and brings down inflation.
For the one guy, probably once, maybe twice more, but it's really torn because it's got these obvious troubles.
I think the landing could be quite a bit harder than many are discussing.
This is Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrow, and Lisa Horowitz.
Live from Asia's capital for our audience worldwide. Good morning and good morning. Down in Washington, D.C., the World Bank IMF spring meetings with Tom Keene, Lisa Horowitz, and Jonathan Farrow. Equity futures on the S&P 500 just by 0.2%. TK a little bit later this morning. Around about 2 hours and 30 minutes. CPI. America.
CPI is more important than the IMF meetings. I think yesterday was the strongest Tuesday we've ever had these IMF spring meetings, and we go right into the theater at 8:30. And what I
Judy Allen.
Growth is going to be really suppressed, and bank stress is going to cause a real issue for the banking sector, but also for the larger economy. So how do we view Yale's comments, given the fact that she said, actually, I don't view the banking stress as ongoing. I think it's been resolved, and everything is moving along just fine. Is she discredited as just a political actor, or does she become someone who really is the pole to offset what we're hearing from the IMF, and frankly, to even Fed officials who are using this as an excuse for possibly not hiking as much?
Well, let's talk about the excuse of Fed officials. The Chicago Fed. Tom had the speech yesterday. Actually, really great read. I have to say, just reading through that a couple of times yesterday evening. Patience, prudence, the approach from him.
I think this is an economist people don't know. They associate it with the White House. They associate it with political economics. He's a frontline economist. He's been underestimated since he began. Out of Chicago, the rest of the British tradition, Gary Becker, the late giant Gary Becker, is social economics.
Every digit here positive by 0.2 of 1%. It yields a little bit higher on a 10-year by a couple of basis points, 3.45. Just about makes it here. Euro-dollar 109.28. Positive there by 1% to 1%.
It is CPI Wednesday, in case you didn't know, in case you haven't heard that a couple times today. Or I'm not looking at the headline year over year. It is noisy. It'll be noisier still based on what we're expecting. Oil prices are down substantially, but since rebounded. Again, response to upside surprise in core CPI that was reported at Goldman Sachs saying we'll see a 2% decline. And at the S&P, if you get some sort of 6% surprise upward, I'm not sure what you could potentially see. The Bank of Canada, I always want the Bank of Canada to make decisions. I know that people say that it's not a big deal. But they've been a front runner here, and they basically made hold at 4.5% for a second straight decision, even though economic data is surprised to the upside. How do we see this read through in the yield phase? The yield has seemed to peak out. What about longer term yields? Do we see them pop upward? Getting more concerning. At 2 p.m., we have the FOMC meeting minutes. Normally they're pretty dry. This time we get a sense of how important bank stress was. Given that there's as they raise rates, we also hear from Tom Barker from the Richmond Fed and Mary Daly as well. Right, exactly. Basically, we find out underneath the mechanics of this decision and how much dissent there was as Goolsbee really pushed out there this feeling. This is concerning. This could potentially create real stress.
Look at IMF gas.
There's the IMF and the IIF, the of the Bank of England is going to be sitting today, and a whole host of other discussions. We will be parsing through them throughout the day.
Who's that? Of course he is. That's just what it's now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. 8:30 Eastern time. We're looking for a little bit later. So in general, we think that we're starting the outside the once again for this year. Our colleagues in economics are seeing core CPI at 0.5 core, but with upside risks, where a lot of the upside risks is, as you said, are maybe in some of the smaller categories. Used cars probably pop up. What's most closely related to shelter? So core services, what's closely related to wages, I should say. Core services X shelter. But what I think is important is really is how the Fed will interpret it, because the way we look at the movement is they're probably going to take any excuse to be more patient or more prudent, as we said. So we think the honest upside surprise could probably be shrugged off both by markets and by policymakers. We also talked about data elsewhere, not just the traditional indicators, CPI, payrolls, GDP. We talk about lending data, what's happening in the banking system. Is that a reason for them to have that patience to wait? So I think there are many reasons at this point. We're going back and simply reflecting that we've had the fastest tightening cycle in history. Many of the effects are yet to seep in. What we like to highlight is if you look at the mortgage market in the US, maybe 10-20% of the rise in Fed policy rates has now mortgage rates that households are paying. So even away from the banking stresses, we think that would be a very good time to pause and reassess their non-linear risk target. But of course, the banking situation is creating a new layer of these uncertainty. So the Fed certainly will be looking at that with great attention. The data we got from the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas recently pointed to some signs of I think, at least unease about lending. But I think even when it comes to the lending data, we'll probably only know over the next 6 months or so how these conditions will evolve. So lots of reasons to be implementation.
But taking a step back, just to sort of give a sense of how the Fed is weighting these two issues, what's more important, today's CPI or taking more on Friday?
Well, it's a very good question. I think if you ask the Fed, they have to say it's not inflation. They're not yet at a point where they're comfortable with the trajectory, let alone the level of inflation. But I do think that when you're an investor, you have to take a step back from the spot data. You have to now look forward. You have to look at forecasts again, when we were discounting forecasts for a long time. And bank earnings, and not just the big bank earnings, of course, a lot of the small banks are much more focused, are probably going to be more informative than CPI data, which in many respects is backwards.
Right. John and I funded yesterday some of the interviews, the intensity of belief and slowdown all of what the IMF is programming for 5 years. You have a weak dollar case. Do you need a 5-year plan to get to a weak dollar, as you and Crystalina Gore gave us, or does it happen sooner?
So we actually think of dollar weakness as a near-term window. It's
Friday or September.
It's going on since the beginning of the year. And for now, we think of it for maybe the majority of the rest of the year, or maybe at least into the end of Q3. Empty issues that we think will be helpful to the dollar as well. But we think that there is a final round waiting when the rest of the world catches up with that US slowdown. The global recession is in portions of the next years. I think that will come back. For now, dollar weakness window for the next 1 to 2 months.
What's fascinating to me is 2 days ago is the idea that world says they've lost the plot. If they have to confront lower nominal GDP, that's got to be yen 110, yen 95, euro 130. Can we think of those magnitudes if you get that level of Fed failure?
Yes. So when it comes to when we get through the recession and maybe to the multi-year out of the cycle, then we think that the euro opportunity going in below 110 is certainly very close. I think we will still see it in the course of the next 15 years. We will have plenty of gyrations between now and then. And you mentioned local GDP growth. We think and worries about inflation. When local GDP growth is weak, we'll have a whole host of other problems. So this was as always by the city. She said talking about the potential for a global recession in 2025, and that's interesting. 2024 we shift to the other side of the dollar smile, and that's where the dollar support starts becoming maybe going into next year.
But until then, the bank stress and potential dovish kind of surprise that you get from the Fed could provide, as Cream says, a buying opportunity before we get 2024.
A lot of people put European vacations time in the United States for this summer. I'm not sure that hopefully will be 20 euro dollar. 420.
Yeah, well, we're not going to mind. I mean, it's way too early in the morning for Europe. Let's go to the scale of 130 euro, John. That changes things in Europe, frankly. I don't think extrapolate that out to a 128 scale. I mean, that's not the time.
I think it's changed.
Well, again, I think we didn't discuss it here. What the people back here, more the backstories inside all this Japan's new leader and what's going to happen with the control. That's a whole separate issue.
When it comes to the fact that the euro has been as weak as it has, have you seen the crowds at the different tourist centers? It's been unbelievable. It's been record reports of Americans. I wonder if people like it or not. I bet it says something.
If you were to hospital,
Of course. Very different. Europeans don't tend to do that. It's like a
Brits have a reputation for this.
that's very defensive. Flash it out.
It's probably fantastic lineup of guests down here in Washington, D.C. We're still from the RBC Capital Markets till we join us in the next hour. And this is some S&P 500, just about positive.
Keeping you up to date with news from around the world with the first word of the day. The administration is launching a tough crackdown for the auto pollution. Right now, California emission limits are so strict that they will compel automakers to ensure 2 out of every 3 cars sold in 2032 are electric models. And slot forming pollution. President Biden is in Belfast, Northern Ireland, will mark the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. Now, that deal ended decades of violence between Catholics and Protestants. The president is also meeting today with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Officials at the Fed are signaling there's a divide over raising interest rates again. New York Fed President John Williams says there's still more work to do to bring down inflation. Meanwhile, Chicago Fed President Austin Gould became the first official to suggest that policymakers may need to hold off on further hikes for now. We have the latest numbers on consumer prices at 8 in New York tonight. Donald Trump won a 4-week delay in the start of the civil trial over his alleged rape of John Carroll. Now, his lawyer says a cooling off period is necessary following his indictment of the case of hush money payments. The trial in the Carroll case is due to start April 25th. Global news powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Lisa McNeely, and this is Bloomberg.
We should gather further data, and we should be extra careful about raising rates too aggressively until we see how much work the headwinds are doing for us in getting inflation down.
That was a great speech from Austin Gould, the Chicago Fed President, delivered yesterday to defer pensions. We can talk about it a little bit later. Like I said, Lisa back in a bit of detail back. Lisa and I got some King John Farrell, good surveillance, and his tax of flavor. In a few hours' time, before we get to that, US just around the corner, about 2 hours and 12 minutes away. And the futures going to that positive 0.2% on the S&P 500. Some yields just a little bit higher on a 10-year through 45-year time line. 2 basis points. Euro showing a bit of strength, got some weakness. The euro against the dollar, euro dollar 1.30, positive down about 0.2%.
You tried to mention is the Bloomberg Financial Relations Index with an absolute total convergence is much more restricted to more accommodative stance. It's not about the zero mark, it's a standard deviation measurement. We're going from a negative 1.2x up sharply in 17 days to a negative 0.14. I think it's underplay. This goes to the dynamics of the moment based on the data and the information of how that plays out.
Takes much of the last 12 months, we've gained much additional based on what rates are doing. Interest spreads are increasingly over the last month, Lisa. We've seen a shift. The focus now is going to be on lending standards. The senior loan for the next survey, I believe, again, makes a really focus point for people to gauge where financial conditions go.
The problem is it's completely ambiguous and there's no actual measure for it. So it's guessing. And how do you have a guessing game? It's about what's the economy. Probably guessing game. An assumption of where we're headed, which everyone would disagree upon. But I'm basically saying we're going back from the way. And many of the people, I would argue most of them, will be better for higher inflation.
Say CPI on
the story that you want to tell? Because how do you put, for example, we go from JP Morgan on Friday into the data bucket, because that's where it's going with respect to how much they're going to be looking to what we're seeing going forward.
Should I see the officer in this?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And I believe Chairman Campbell actually have some understanding of what that looks like when he meets with his committees on May 7th.
Yeah, I want to thank you. The fact that this morning's data points, I think, suggest the most important thing.
It is the TV for the market at least. Bank earnings on this point, they have more than the CPI. Squeeze to the deposit line.
Yeah, and continue, even if it's a slower level, even to continue to flow. Continue to feel this of goods in trade, whether it's in the I should say, continue to follow the line. We played for the Dawson, and that's the game of risk. You're doing it in reality. Scenario analysis. What scenarios are we looking at in Washington?
You're now seeing China with peace deals between Iran and Saudi. I mean, the whole geopolitical landscape continues to shift, but for a lot of my clients, especially off the back of the last year with Russia, really beginning to look at some of the China-US, China-Western tensions to see what do we need to prepare for in the event that things get worse. Now, China is a much more rational actor than Russia by a country mile, but many folks got burned on Russia, lost significantly. Now you have assets being nationalized, being nationalized. No one wants to be caught out there, so people are really trying to look at the what-if scenario right now to see how can we prepare for it.
Earlier this week, Peter Cheers on the show, John, and said that this is a long-term time. And we need a very long time to talk with all our military leaders and military leaders assessing this. Given that, how are the steps that they're taking? We're all in on this.
Technology companies that purchase certain precious metals, they use downstream in their supply chain to cost of the consumer. When you look at country-related sanctions where there's significance, you're really trying to look at how to safeguard your IP, how to safeguard your human capital. There are no good answers to this. There's really just a whole bunch of scenarios and playbooks to really try and iron out what happened. But there's no good answers. That's really the challenge.
China.
My clients are worried about stranded assets in any country where there's broader geopolitical risk. Some having had stranded assets in Russia, some that are on the verge of being nationalized. So I think at this point, they're really looking everywhere, but it's not just those countries. If you look at the other countries that are known to be supporting Russia, for instance, the UAE has a ton of pressure on it for all of the influx of Russian capital. That can also backfire on businesses operating in that region if the U.S. and its allies tend to focus more harsher enforcement and sanctions on those that are harboring Russian assets that they may not want there.
Well, key phrase there, the US and its allies. Where are the allies of the United States on some of these issues now? Are you convinced that if they try to impose sanctions on a place like China the way they have done with Russia, those allies would be on board?
So China isn't Russia. I think China has taken an extremely measured response to all of the issues, even thinking back to Trump years and the bluff and bluster, as Tom would say, but some of the Trump rhetoric against China. China's responded very measured. And I think that business reacts to that and recognizes that you're dealing with a much more rational actor that sees the downside risk to their economy. And companies are aware of that, but they also want to take certain precautions to make sure they're not caught flat-footed.
You basically said, you're going to come out and say, well, we're going to China, so come do business with us. And I actually wonder if any businesses are actually reducing some of their assets in those nations, or they're just making them service.
Some conversations that we've had so far this week,
I mean, I don't think those comments will be had with the block, but those comments definitely will be had. If that is the case, in reality, I think there's a far better outcome for geopolitics. You've got more representative of the blocks. Usually, that might be a slight problem for what's trying to happen with a broader Western campaign.
just a bit. That's not bad. Thank you. That's not saying anything around. I said a few times, not need to imply that he's doing this for reasons. We're not talking about the next week's appearance.
I think they have scenario analysis for Elon Musk and Shane. You have to come.
Oh, yeah. You consider teaching lots of investment and
Depending on this, the scenario analysis.
should we do some of that scenario analysis next time? Okay. Can we do Tesla specifically with you, Dan? I don't think so. I think it's just classic. Yes, okay. That's you too. This is the fact. From Washington, D.C., this is Bloomberg Surveillance. This takes the price action to add out to the CPI report in the United States of America. Futures positive by 0.2%. Yesterday, total snooze on the S&P 500. Total unchanged. Good weakness on the Nasdaq this softer. Yesterday, this morning positive 0.1%. Elsewhere in the bond market, 2s, 10s, 30s, shaking up as follows. Your 2-year going into this print. Yield higher by 3 basis points. Reclaiming a full handle on a 2-year, 4.0539% on a 2-year yield. Just to round things out with foreign exchange, just a sneak peek at euro dollar for you. The euro stronger this morning against a weak US dollar, 1.927, positive there by a little more than a tenth of 1%. That's a price action for a summary of the conversations on this program. Point out Lisa's latest work. Subscribe to Bloomberg Surveillance newsletter. There we go. Bloomberg.com/surveillance. Subscribe to Bloomberg.com/surveillance.
Basically, to understand the main themes of the day that we talk about, and also we have so many amazing conversations with people to understand and distill the main debates and kind of come out with sort of threads that sort of emerge every day. I personally think we
Can we rename it the Daily Blue? The Daily Anxiety?
Yeah, we're going to be
I actually know that because I got a couple of those for Toxic Brew. The morning Toxic Brew.
Sorry. I think it pops.
Yeah, well, only if we open it again. Every time you open it.
We should put that into please subscribe. Subscribe. Okay. So that's the way. Is that enough? That's enough. CPI. Big banks out with their estimates already. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Gold, and Morgan Stanley all forecasting 0.4%. An increase of that in core inflation month over month. Meanwhile, JP Morgan City expecting a move on of 5%. So JP Morgan City for 0.5. Over month is this big news for Wall Street now.
Year is sort of the good you look through the everybody has a convention year and what 6 months ago, people also
Just a picture of the trend. Just get an idea of the trend.
So let's do that right now. We're really reaching this U.S. consumer price. This is really important. Just a great pen over the paper after this. And I'm going to go to where we were there, which is really diving into inflation data. So the zeitgeist is goods and services, but focuses on services. How does real estate distort the probably 30% within the services sector of inflation?
That's a great question. We're talking about a third of the CPI basket, which comes from the rent and OER components. That's reflecting real estate, the tightness in the housing market in the US. We don't have enough rental units, so rent prices increased significantly post-pandemic. And then the core of the CPI is that the way the tightness in the housing market feeds into that index is very, very lag. So we're dealing with quarters and quarters of high rent components in the CPI basket, but in the housing market itself, it's starting to fall.
I saw, I believe, the Telegraph today, a discussion about Britain is now rolling over within a floating rate set of statistics to a new reality on inflation, reset mortgages and like. We don't have that. If it's lagging, how lagging is lagging? How far out do you look to get the reset of the inflation we're living in?
So we have two different things going on here. First of all, the lags with the rent and OER component for about 6 to 12 months. So I'm looking at the middle of the year, the earliest where we might see some signs of easing in those components of CPI. And then in the UK, we have a floating mortgage market. Here, mortgages are fixed for 30 years. So the way they feed into the price components are also very different.
Are there reasons for the Fed to have a bias to look for an excuse to not hike more? Is there a reason in the data that perhaps is it coming out in the headline figures that we're going to get today, or even in the core, but underneath in small components feeding in?
So when you look at the data right now, what we have to realize is that they are backward looking. All the information we're getting now are data before SVB and before the bank failures. Now going ahead, we're expecting some tightening in credit conditions, which will affect the economy and inflation with a lag. What we're seeing now, it's very strong and it speaks to a different world than what we're living right now. And so for the Fed, I think this will be interesting because they're making a policy decision based on something that is not forward looking.
Is bank stress disinflationary? There was actually a really interesting report talking about how it's stagflationary, because if you reduce credit, then companies are forced to produce less and basically raise the prices. So isn't this essentially a recipe for stagflation? Whatever we cut it.
You are basically raising the cost of capital, the cost of doing business. There are theoretical models that make the same point, Lisa, that this can be inflationary. Now, and when you look at the history of data, the way credit crunches work on the economy, they have long lags. So this is not going to be short-term disinflationary from the Fed. I don't think so.
This is the luxury of waiting.
I think they've made it very clear also that they need to at least get to what they promised us on the summary of economic projections, and they also need to stay there for some time. Time and again last year, Powell made the analogy that he does not want to be the Burns of this generation. He does not want to have the interest rates to sit.
He's somebody who learns when he risks being tree shape into a crisis. Does he run that risk as well?
I think he does, and that's a risk that they are prepared to take based on their reaction function and their communication, that they would rather over tighten than under tighten and have to do more down the line.
Right now, are they overtaking it? And if they were 25 on the third, what level of overtaking is that?
So we're all a little bit in the dark because we don't know what the actual interest rate is in real life. Based on how the economy is behaving, by that I mean the real economy, the labor market, it doesn't feel like it's real tight. Based on the financial sector and consistently rates are a bit too tight there. So we're going back to that discussion we had before we started R**. Maybe the financial stability interest rate, the equilibrium interest rate, might be lower than the real economy equilibrium interest rate. And that's what we're finding out this morning.
Responses to R**.
Particularly now.
Those people always R**. That happens after 5 p.m. When I look at R**, it's a bunch of theoretical knowledge. Our listeners, our viewers are really tangible inflation. When did they decide to 12 months look backward and solve? When did they feel that?
So that means when inflation down in a meaningful way, but the labor market has not deteriorated dramatically. This is the fine line that the Fed's trying to walk, right? And there's no guarantee that this is going to happen. When you look at their summary of economic projections, they're telling us they expect the unemployment rate to increase by 2 percentage points. If inflation slows but the unemployment rate increases, that doesn't feel great. And then they're at the same time saying that this is not necessarily a recessionary outcome. If you look at the sum rule, which tells you historically, when the unemployment rate in the US increases by 0.5 percentage point during a recession, we're talking about that as well. So if you take a look at 3-month yields in the US, they're the highest relative to 10-year yields in the early 1980s. Could this alone actually cause some sort of recession by just draining the entire economy of cash? So banks face an interesting situation here where reserves are coming down fast. And actually, when you look at the level of deposits during the pandemic, it was growing at a above trend pace. And so we're going to see ongoing normalization in reserves and low deposits. And the flip side of that is that money market funds against inflows. And what do banks do if they have less fewer deposits? They're going to lend less, and that's not going to be able to for the economy. Now, the lags to which they seem to be working, I think they can be quite long. So just before we don't see credit really falling off a cliff in the next few months, I don't think we should feel comfortable that we'll this process.
Lorena, thank you. Lorena Uruchina of T. Rowe Price, on the latest in this US economy. The labour market is 4.5% of the economy right now. I think it's 4.5% of the economy. Is that reserves what they forecast for year end this year? So it's April, 8 months away. They think unemployment is 100 basis points higher. 4% is 4.5%. This is the kind of pain that Bruno's talking about that we haven't yet experienced. And when we do, it's how much things have changed.
Well, I'd say the jobs report, when I can keep rips apart the numbers, the cross-American unemployment rates is something higher than Elizabeth Warren never imagined. Warren, I think 3.5% is a big point. Why are we celebrating this and solving inflation other ways?
Well, the problem is that on one hand, if you have people who are fully employed, they will keep spending. If they keep spending, you end up with a more persistent inflation. That's the theory. On the flip side, if you start getting layoffs, that also has a cycle of its own. And once they start, they feed on each other. And this is the fear. This is sort of the tipping point. Are we ending up in a situation where either we're overly employed and can't get inflation down, or we start a cycle of unemployment that is very hard to stop? And that, I think, is really the big fear.
The Fed's got it going from 3.5 to 4.5. That 4.6 is just not something down. Yes, it's probably common smooth.
Exactly. And it's a managed state. Before
Is it
that's
like that?
I agree to get it going. I have a tank. The answer is no, you're 100% right. It's not predictable. It's these are well-meaning officers that have no will. They're managing a controlled, dry path because that's public policy and a political movement.
We're talking about political movement. How do these project projections really face off for the political cycle we have? That's what I'm saying. It's already coming out and really eviscerating the Fed currently and saying that this is all politicized and that they were too late and that they're moving too fast. And they're going to beat opinion no matter what. So how do these projections change to really get there?
I know that will change based on politics. If you don't believe that stuff, it's the reinvention of lags to try to guesstimate an always challenging environment without politics. I'm
just don't think they can simply go. Change. Take up several, but it's you. Nonsense.
Tim Adams of the Institute of International Finance, their conversation from Washington. Live from the nation's capital, for the IMF World Bank Spring Meetings. This is the back.
家から空港まで親子でヘトヘト。Keeping you up to date with news from around the